crew is all moving around. My little crew here. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 We're going to read from chapter 5 today, verse 18. Chapter 5 is Karma Yoga, Action, and Krishna Consciousness. And I have some guests here. I have some house guests, and I have Anasuya, and I have Valerie and Tim at the table with me. So we'll try to work it with all of us here. But so we're gonna start with the words. And so, has everybody got the book and the chapter ready? The verse 5:18.
I can always share.
Vidya,
Vidya,
Vinaya,
Vinaya,
Sampane,
Sampane,
Brahmane,
Brahmane,
Gavi,
Gavi,
Hastini,
Hastani,
Suni,
Suni,
Cha,
Cha,
Eva,
Eva,
Svapake,
Svapake,
Cha,
Cha.
Pandita,
5:18. Okay, I was okay.
Pandita,
Samadarshina.
Samadarshana.
Vidya Vinaya Sampane,
Vidya Vinaya Sampane,
Brahmane Gavi Hastini,
Brahmane Gavi Hastani,
Suni Chaiva Svapake Cha,
Suni Chaiva Sivatacha,
Pandita Samadarshina,
Pandita Samadarshana,
Vidya Vinaya Sampane,
Vidya Vinaya Sampane,
Brahmane Gavi Hastini,
Brahmane Gavi Hastani,
Suni Chaiva Svapake Cha,
Suni Chaiva Sivatacha,
Pandita Samadarshina,
Pandita Samadarshana,
Vidya Vinaya Sampane,
Vidya Vinaya Sampane,
Brahmane Gavi Hastini,
Brahmane Gavi Hastani,
Suni Chaiva Svapake Cha,
Suni Chaiva Sivatacha,
Pandita Samadarshina,
Pandita Samadarshana, Vidya Vinaya Sampane,
Vidya Vinaya Sampane,
Brahmane Gavi Hastani,
Brahmane Gavi Hastini,
Suni Chaiva Sivapake Cha,
Suni Chaiva Svapake Cha,
Pandita Samadarshana,
Pandita Samadarshina.
Should I try it?
Would you?
Okay. Vidya Vinya Sumpanya
Vidya Vinaya Sampane,
Brahmagava Hastini
Hastini, Brahmane Gavi Hastini,
Suni Chaiva Suvapacha
Suni Chaiva Svapake Cha,
Pandita Samadarshana.
Pandita Samadarshina. Tim, you want to give it a try? No, okay. Anybody
That's the first
online
one
want to
I've
give it a try?
done. It's hard.
Yeah, you
Would anybody online like to recite the verse?
Vidya Vinaya Sampane,
Vidya Vinaya Sampane,
Brahmane Gaviastini,
Brahmane Gavi Hastini,
Shunichaiva Swapake Cha,
Suni Chaiva Svapake Cha,
Pandita Samadarshinaha,
Pandita Samadarshina. Anyone else?
I'll try again.
Should I try again?
Yeah. Vidya Vinya Sampan. Will you guys say that with me?
Sampane,
Shamane. Brahmagavi Hastini.
Ramane Gavihastini.
Sunichara Sabapakacha.
Sunichaiva Svapakecha.
Pandita Sumadashana.
Pandita Samadarshina. Anyone else? All right. The translation for the verse is: the humble sage, by virtue of true knowledge, sees with equal vision a learned and gentle Brahmana, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog eater outcast. I didn't do the word for word, but we'll just keep going. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The Krishna conscious person does not make any distinction between species or caste. The Brahmana and the outcast may be different from the social point of view, or a dog, a cow, or an elephant may be different from the point of view of a species. But these differences of body are meaningless from the viewpoint of a learned transcendentalist. This is due to their relationship to the Supreme, for the Supreme Lord, by his plenary portion as Paramatma, is present in everyone's heart. Such an understanding of the Supreme is real knowledge. As far as the bodies are concerned, in different castes or different species of life, the Lord is equally kind to everyone because he treats every living being as a friend, yet maintains himself as Paramatma regardless of the circumstances of the living entities. The Lord as Paramatma is present both in the outcast and in the Brahman, although the body of the Brahman and that of the outcast are not the same. The bodies are material productions of different modes of material nature, but the soul and the supersoul within the body are the same spiritual quality. The similarity in the quality of the soul and the supersoul, however, does not make them equal in quantity, for the individual soul is present only in that particular body, whereas the Paramatma is present in each and every body. The Krishna conscious person has full knowledge of this, and therefore he's truly learned and has equal vision. The similar characteristics of the soul and supersoul are that they are both conscious, eternal, and blissful. But the difference is that the individual soul is conscious within the limited jurisdiction of the body, whereas the supersoul is conscious of all bodies. The supersoul is present in all bodies without distinction. All right, I'm going to read some auspicious mantras to get us prepared for class, and I've got some guests here, so y'all, I'm going to just read and y'all can join if you want to. Some of this. I'm going to go see if I can read everything. Omagyanat mirandasha, Ganagana Shalakaya, Chakshum Militamina, Tashmai Shri Gurve Namaha, Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam, Shtapitam Yena Bhutam, Swami Papadamayan, Nadanti Swapadantikam, Amdeham Shri Guru, Shri Taparakama, Shri Guru Vaishnavascha, Sangrajatam, Sahajana Ravanatam, Vitam Tam Sajivam, Sadvaitam Savadutam, Tvajana Saita Krishna Chaitanya Devam, Shri Radha Krishna Padam, Sahagana Lalita, Vrivi Shaka Vitam Cha, He Krishna Karuna Sindhu, Dina Bandhu Jagatpate, Gopisha Gopika Kanta, Radha Kanta Namostate, Takta Kanchana Gaurangi, Radhe Vrindavaneshwar, Vishwasana Sate Devi, Hanamami Hari Priya, Vanchikalpa Tarupyascha, Kripa Sindhu Vyahimacha, Patitanam Pavanekam, Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namo, Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Shri Rasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Namo Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale, Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane, Namaste Saraswati Devi, Gauravani Pacharine, Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschachade Shatai. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thank you all for being here for Bhagavad Gita class on Wednesday night. And thank you, friends, for joining me and supporting. This verse is, I think, called the equal vision verse. And I know that Ladini calls it the dog verse. The humble sage, by virtue of true knowledge, sees with equal vision the learned and gentle Brahman, a cow, an elephant, a dog eater. There's a lot going on for me with this verse. The reason I chose this verse, and I'm going to just share that. Can y'all hear me okay? Melanie, is everything? Volume's okay? Okay. So when I agreed to teach this class, I was thinking, okay, I'm going to let surface up what verse instead of go pick a verse, let it kind of manifest itself in my reading and my experiences here at Prabhupada House. And of course, that's actually what happened. So I wanted to explore something that would give me some meaning and some experience, something I could use here in my service at Prabhupada House. So I'm reading Canto 1. I'm about in the middle of Canto 1, where Yudhisthira is becoming the king after the war, and he talks a lot about violence and nonviolence and how everybody got along so well and so much brotherhood, and that was really inspiring to me. And then we're reading chapter 16 in our Bhagavad Gita class, and it talks about violence and nonviolence and ahimsa. And then because I'm here at this vegetarian household and I have so many guests that come here that aren't vegetarian, the vegetarian subject is always at the top of my conversation list. And so I had all this stuff coming up about this seems to be a way for me to delve into this subject. And equal vision, I knew this verse. We learned it for initiation, and I liked it, and I understood it, theoretically, but I noticed that I had a lot of judgment still going on, even though I understood the verse on the page. I had a couple of situations come up, and I noticed myself being super judgmental and not having equal vision. So I was looking at that, and so we have some neighbors, and there's some neighbors that I judge, one set of neighbors, and the ambulance came in the middle of the night. I saw it out my window. So the next day I went over with Prashadam and tried to just look past my judgment, but it was so uncomfortable. And all the way home, I was just chanting this verse, thinking, okay, stop, just equal vision. I was just focused on it. That was just a couple of weeks ago. And then, and so you just had the house pressure washed, and I was thinking how lightly we took just clean everything off the house. Bugs, nests, anything that's living out there, gone. And so the guy was here doing it, and I went outside, and it looked great. Like we had a new paint job, everything was clean and pretty, but all those animals were gone, all those insects. And so it dawned on me that she and I didn't even discuss how many souls were going to be annihilated that day. So that kind of struck me that I didn't even give it much thought and didn't have a conversation about that. And then we don't have a bug problem here. I don't know how, but it's pretty clean here, but we don't fumigate or anything. And we have very seldom I see a roach, and I don't like them. And so they were bothering me because every now and then when I see one, I don't know what to do with it. Just let him keep roaming throughout the house or take him outside. I don't like to touch him. And so I was thinking about how I automatically want to just smash it just because that's what I used to do. And so now I just leave them and let them go in the house, but occasionally there's a dead one. And so that also brought this topic up of equal vision and spirit soul. So, so the roaches and the pressure washing and the neighbors, and then there's the visitors. So I think I've shared with a lot of you, it's a fun ride over here with the visitors. And so we have visitors from all walks of life, all shapes, sizes, colors, religions. And they're not coming for a bhakti retreat, they're coming for Airbnb. So when I'm sharing with them and interacting with each of them, I am very conscious of wanting to control their experience. And so I noticed recently that with the guest, I'm wanting to make sure they have a good experience, make sure that I can interact with them on a spiritual level, and discuss vegetarianism with them, discuss Prabhupada, etc. And I found myself making some judgments of based on their name, their car, how they spoke to me in the Airbnb message board. All of it was building up sort of a preconceived how I'm gonna handle this person, and there's a whole bunch of them, so it was a lot of work, and I didn't feel very good about it. And I was always wrong. People were always much more open, receptive, loving, and beautiful than I could ever imagine. And I always was grateful and thanked Prabhupada and Krishna for that. But I kept doing this sort of preconceived kind of management thing in my head that was really wasting a lot of energy. So I noticed I was doing it, and I just stopped doing it. And I just said, okay, all I have to do is be to have my contract is I am a soft-hearted full-time devotee, and that's all I have to do. I don't have to worry about what, Tim's experience is going to be like, or anybody else's experience. That's up to them. And so to me, when I was studying that, it brought up equal vision. So I have a lot of reasons for being immersed in this verse. So once I was reading chapter 16, and the first few verses are about nonviolence and not arresting the progressive life of any entity, I just felt like I hit a nerve that brought all of this together. So I'm going to attempt to lead class today, and I see so many faces, and I'm going to attempt to kind of bring in chapter 16, chapter 5, and then and connect nonviolence with equal vision. And then I've also got some sort of secrets and formulas that I read. I read a lot of Prabhupada's letters and discussions, and he talks a lot about all this. So I was kind of feeling like, okay, so here's the equal vision verse. And so now what do I do with all this information? It kind of starts back at ground zero with, I'm a spirit soul. I'm not this body, right? And so we all know that. We hear that over and over in Krishna consciousness. And so how do I take this beautiful idea of being equal to everyone and every living being, every entity, into my life? And it starts with like my devotion. It starts with, to me, when I was just reading and enjoying exploring this topic, it felt like, okay, so I'm not the body. I hear that a lot, but I'm not there yet. So this means I got to sink into my devotional service to start feeling these transcendental realizations. I've got to really put my heart and soul into it and really be a devotee. So I was like, okay, I'm doing that. I can do that. And then a bunch of verses. I mean, they're just everywhere. I think every verse I've read and everything I've read since I started thinking about leading this class, I can loop it back into this verse. And so I'm looking at chapter 14 where Krishna is the seed-giving father. So if we see Krishna as our father, as the father of every single thing, if we see God as that father and we're all the children, then it's like, well, I don't want to hurt my brother or my sister or my friend. So that made sense to me. And then if I don't see people by their caste or their color, or their shape, or their nationality, and I just see straight through that to the soul, to the spirit soul, to the super soul, and I know there's a little spark of God in every being. If I can focus on that, which is what I was focusing on when I left the neighbor's house that night, I was chanting it to myself because I was kind of scared, and I was thinking, okay, you can do this. Like really focus on. And it took a mantra to get me home and feel grounded once I got back in the house, and I shared with Anasuya my feelings, because it's not an obvious fear. It's just something stirred up that activates me with this particular neighbor. But if I don't look at the outside body of the neighbor and I just go to spirit soul and I go to we're not the body, that helps. And so I've got some work to do there, but I understand that that's the basis of my progress. And knowing that our souls are all part of our Father God, our Father, that helped me. And then if I stop comparing and in dualities of high and low, ugly, attractive, old, young, fat, skinny, healthy, not healthy, Christian, not Christian. Like if I stopped doing that sort of duality, then it seemed like I could bring everybody into a category that like, but erasing that is really difficult, but I'm practicing it. So the 213 verse, the Hino Shmin Yatadehe, that verse is, you know, where that verse helped me a lot too. And I know most of you know that verse, but I have it here. I was going to read it in case you don't. The Bhagavad Gita 213 is the embodied soul continuously passes from this body, from boyhood to youth to old age, to another body after death. And so a sober person isn't bewildered by that. That like is the root of all this for me for this verse. So yeah, I got some place to go on that, but at least I understood that. So I was glad for all of these years of being in this movement, so I could have an idea of how to be with all these situations that I just described you with the roaches and the spiders and the neighbors and the guests. So if I learn not to praise or criticize anyone, any living entity, my family, anybody, myself, compassion for everything, harmonious coexistence, all of us in service. If I can set up my life so that is fluid, it just is because it's natural around here, then if I can set that up in my life, then that's where I'm at right now. And that felt comfortable. Compassion for everyone, to purify my existence by my chanting, my listening, my reading, my attending classes, my harmonium. We just had a big kirtan in there. All of that's purifying. And that gets me right into verse 213 and verse 518 and all the other verses that we're reading, chapter 16 in Canto 1. So the chapter 12 in the Gita, it also relates to this because it talks about if you want to be a friend with Krishna, with your seed-giving father, with your best friend, like Arjuna was friends with Krishna, then you have to do things and be things that are dear to him. And he likes it when we're kind and friendly to everybody. And he doesn't like it when we put others into difficulty. It says that in chapter 12. So that was like, okay, so there's another chapter that kind of weaves into this equal vision theory, so that we have going on tonight, that we can achieve this. To our goal in life as Krishna conscious devotees is to help each soul, whoever they are, all those people and insects and animals I just described, to help them find their way back home to God. So in doing that, we serve, and in serving, we elevate our consciousness. And when we elevate our consciousness, we understand these directions from Krishna and Prabhupada on a deeper level, right? That's how the formula, I think, goes, and that's how I understand it in my few years of serving. So if I take all that little stuff in a nutshell and I go over to chapter 16 and I think about, okay, when I was reading, okay, don't arrest the progressive life of any living entity in chapter 16, the first 3 verses. I love that because I was like, okay, well, I just did that with the roaches and the neighbors and the spider webs outside. I did that and I felt a little shame and guilt from it. And then I thought, well, I know I'm feeling and I'm recognizing, so that's a step in the right direction. And that felt okay. And then when I was reading on about what actually is violence and nonviolence, and reading further about it in some other areas outside of chapter 16, I realized that if I think just from culminating all of Prabhupada's, the stuff I read, a lot of stuff, and watched some videos, and it was just so much fun. I think I could do that all day long, every day. I really love it, just digging real deep into one subject. But what I understand is from all the reading on what started to be a chapter 16 motivation, kind of just all meshed together, which is how I think all of these books do. They're all Prabhupada's books are also interrelated. Is that if I'm not doing my service here, if I'm not serving Tim Prashadam, and I'm not doing kirtan with Anasuya, and Valerie called me today, the last minute, I'm preparing for class, And the part of me that's not, that's being violent says, oh, I'm really busy right now. I want to prepare for class. I want to stay focused on that mood. And I don't know if I can handle Valerie right now. So what I had to do from all this reading is say, you can come, but I need you to stay focused with me, and I need us to be in a sattvic manner, and we need to do kirtan. And she's like, great. And she came and she followed the rules. And then I was like, well, if I said to her, can you not come today? Can you come another day when I've got more time and I'm not so focused on leading this class? Then it would be better for me personally, but she's got interest right now. She's excited to be here right now. And so to me, that felt like, okay, I'm going to practice something that I learned this week and also set some boundaries. So all of that strength comes from, and it all comes from the chanting and the listening and the reading. But I don't have an option as a devotee and as a full-time devotee and a devotee of my contract and as my service here at this house for Krishna, Prabhupada, and Asuya, and all of you guys who support me so nicely in my prospering realizations in Krishna consciousness, that I have a job to do. It's my duty. It seems like everything I've done my whole life has been preparing me to get here right now. And, the cooking, the cleaning, the organizing, the hosting, the singing, all of it, and the conversations. Yeah, Tim and I had a conversation in the hallway today. And I got a text from another guest today about what does B do have. He's reading David's book. And so all of that takes time and energy, but it feels aligned with nonviolence to me. So I let go of who needs what, but don't lose myself and focus in on, it's my job to create this nonviolent situation, which is to support people in their consciousness and their growth in spiritual consciousness, to increase their spiritual happiness. And so my job is to bring all these conditioned souls into some sort of devotional field of service. And even the little guys outside on the porch that got swept away in the water, they heard a lot of kirtan, and they heard a lot of lectures, and they heard a lot of conversations. And they can't participate in reading the Vedas, but they got that secondhand. There's so much coming up from this house, from this temple room, and from this kitchen. So instruct everyone we meet. Lord Chaitanya says this in the seventh Majja Lila 7:128. If we instruct everyone we meet, it's just such a big old order to take, but I hear it and I feel it. So we enlighten the world, we change the world, we plant the seeds. I'm not responsible. I don't know where you're going after this, Tim, Valerie, whatever. And there's loads more, hundreds of people. So I just plant a seed of how God conscious are you, and how can I assist you in becoming more conscious of violence, nonviolence, vegetarianism, God practice, how to fill our souls with this beauty. So, which now I'm thinking of the Paradukaduki that Dear Govinda mentions all the time in class, to consider the suffering of others, to feel that. And Tim actually came to me today and said he was a highly sensitive person. And I said, oh, you're Paradukaduki. Okay, good. We're on the same page. So we have something to ground our conversation in. We're just passing the hallway. And so I just look up at Prabhupada and I'm grateful, because I know that I get sent the most beautiful people that can engage in conversation with me. And I want to share, I had two other guests last week, John and Raquel. And so you got to meet both of them, I think. And this beautiful thing happens here where people come and they're here for a day or two or three. If they're here for multiple days, we have a lot more interaction, but I hone in pretty quick. But so John came a week or two ago, and then he came back. He was here, he extended a day, then he had to go visit his sister. Then he came back and he stayed, and he extended another day. So I had like 6 or 8 days all together, split into 2 visits. And I said, well, why'd you come back? What is it you're after? I know how the first trip went, but what are you after here? And he's like, well, I just want to finish the conversation. I said, well, where are we going with this? Like, what are you interested in? And he didn't want to pick up the books. He didn't want to read the Bhagavad Gita. He didn't want to chant, but he was interested in something we had here. So we had lots of conversations. And then I got him into David's book because that's about what he could handle for the moment. Then he asked to meet David. So I drove him up and he had a session with Yogavinda in Alachua. And he came back and he was a little more settled. And so he asked me as he checked out the next morning, he said, which book should I take here off the table? And I said, well, let's take David's book and then let's give you a Bhagavad Gita. And I opened it and I said, let me just mark a few verses. Let's talk about them real quick. So you've got something to think about while you're driving, and let's, send him out the door with some good stuff. And he's like, no, I don't want the Bhagavad Gita. Do you have a pamphlet? And I'm laughing because I've said the same thing years ago. You can put this devotional stuff in a pamphlet, because I didn't know about all this now. But I was like, okay, we serve God and we get good vibes from that. And then that's how we proceed. Like it didn't seem like we needed all these books. But he said, I don't want the book. And I marked the pages. He didn't want to talk about it. But then I said, he goes, well, you got a pamphlet? And I don't have a pamphlet. Maybe I need a pamphlet, but I didn't have one. But then I had this really good idea that I can't believe I didn't think of before. It was funny. I said, hold on a minute, I might have a pamphlet. So I went upstairs and I remembered that flyer that we have that has the strategies for living. And it has like, live on purpose, give 100%, blah, blah. So I was like, that's kind of a pamphlet, and it's got all the good stuff in it. It waters it down to one page. He could handle that. And I said, okay. I folded up, and then I said, well, you're going to take this with you and put it on the fridge, and then call me when you let's look. But I said, let's look at a couple before you go, and let's just hone in on it. And it is really, I never really noticed it, but it is kind of the whole, like the actions in there are centered on spiritual consciousness. So I really didn't think of it as a pamphlet, but it was a really good last minute choice. And so we circled a couple of things. And then earlier in the day, he had said to me, he was talking about his love language, expressing his love language. And I was telling him, I said, well, my love language is quality time. And it's been really great that you've entertained that and you've been here and we've had so much quality time together. And he said, well, that's not a love language. And he said, there's 4 love languages and that's not one of them. And I said, well, it is, because I read the book and I took a class. I used to teach my team, everybody on my team. When I had a workplace, we all had our love languages on our door. And I knew that it was one, but he was fighting me to be right. And to the point where we had to go look it up. And I showed him the picture on my phone. I said, 5 love languages, quality time. He says, well, let me look it up. Like he's got to go look it up separate because he's so stubborn. And I was like, well, let's print you out the strategies for survival, because you need that one too. So we had both. So we have both of them. And the thing is, this guy's so receptive. He didn't even get upset with me. He just was like, oh, so I'm circle being right. I know a lot about that one. And so then we marked some pages in David's book, and he left. And then I noticed the Bhagavad Gita was gone. He sneaked and took it. So I went out to his car and I said, I saw that. I just want you to know I saw that. I said, call me when you get home and let me know. Let me know, because he had like a 12-hour drive to go back to Pennsylvania. So he did call when he got home, and he had taken the strategies for survival and the strategies for living and redecorated and printed them on nice, pretty sheets and laminated them for the refrigerator, made copies for all his friends. So that's the kind of like, it just lets me know that everything we do here, everything we do for the people around us is powerful, and that it may not look the same for each person. It definitely doesn't. And then I want to share one more thing about Raquel. We had a retreat here last weekend, and we had a bunch of girls here. It started on Wednesday night. I thought I'd blocked the room while we were setting up, and I didn't. So we're in dinner time. A bunch of us, Anasui was here. My buzzer goes off. Someone's on the way to check in. It's almost 8 o'clock, and I couldn't believe it. I wanted to cancel because we had stuff spread everywhere. We were focused on getting set up, and there was a lot of people here already. And I was like, shoot, what do I do? So I just let her come because I didn't want to make a problem. So she comes in, I'm in the kitchen doing dishes. It's after dinner. She wandered into the temple room by herself. She's on the floor. And after I realized that she was here, I came and checked in on her, and she was having a conversation with Jamie, who's a Sabbatoke graduate. And I said, well, I gave her some prasadam, and she said, thank you. And she was like, I just needed this place. And she had a really bad week. And she looked around and she took it all in. And she said, it's perfect here. Thank you for accepting me. And I said, well, Joppa's at 5 a.m. I just knew she was going to say no, but she goes, I'll be there. And she was down here before me, ready to go. So I go, what if I had said, oh, I'm not in the mood, or I don't have time, or we're booked, I forgot to close the room out. So then she says, well, I don't want to leave. And I said, well, we have a retreat and all the rooms are booked. You have to leave. So I called Jennifer, my friend, y'all know Jennifer Thomas, and Jennifer let her stay at her place because we didn't have a place for her to stay anymore. And then she came back Sunday. I made a big feast on Sunday, and she came back and stayed again. And so I look at that, and that kind of stuff happens here. And when I go, and I'm doing all the stuff that I'm doing, preparing for this class, doing my normal reading, doing the japa, playing harmonium, cooking, but offering the food, and everyone gets to see and participate in all that. And it feels so good that they're seeing it and able to, I don't know, fit it into their life and understand it and not be fearful of it. It always surprises me. Anyway, thank you for listening to those fun stories about what realizations are happening here at Prabhupada's house. I am spreading the love of God as best I can. What Prabhupada talked about was expansion of our philosophy. So there's a bunch of stuff where he says, expand your philosophy. So I was reading about all these and I saved a couple of them, but he encouraged us to sort of have this broader vision of, so when we're talking about the nonviolent stuff, I hope you're following me, linking it back to equal vision, but we can't be, if we understand equal vision and that we're spirit soul, we won't be violent to other beings. That just makes sense, right? So we expand our consciousness and our philosophy. So Prabhupada talks about this and he says, take on this broader vision. And so in the 7th canto, he says it's not about making, no living entity should be an enemy, nothing. So you go past just the humans. And so there's a little excerpt I'm going to read real quick because I don't want to mess up the story, but this is Prabhupada sharing expand your philosophy. And there's a couple of them. So I'm going to read the first one. I'm reading directly from his word. If we consider killing a poor old man in the street because he's useless to society, we don't kill him because he's a citizen. It's not allowed by the state. If we expand not killing any beings like trees, birds, animals, because they're all sons of God, we can see that we're as guilty as the person who would kill that poor guy on the street. So we don't kill the guy on the street. This is me talking, because there's a law against it, because he's a human. But we can kill some other stuff because there's not a whole lot of laws against that. And it's okay because there's no real punishment if you do it. So Prabhupada's saying, like, expand your philosophy. It needs to expand past the human and on into the to every living being. And so he goes further to say that the Vaishnava would try to elevate that man, not kill him, and they wouldn't just leave him there. They would put some effort into elevating him. And I'm reminded of a story Mother Donovan told me a long time ago. And she said, I asked her one time, like, what was the best book distribution story she had in an airport? And she immediately jumped on, oh, I met this guy and we were leaving. We'd been doing it all day and had a great day. And I distributed all these books. And then we were about to pack up and they're going, come on. And she's like the last one. And she's coming through the airport. I think she said she was in Chicago. And she said, and there was a guy sleeping over on the floor. And I hope I'm telling this correctly. Excuse me if I'm not, if I don't remember it all, but she said he was on the floor asleep. And I just went over to him, kind of nudged him and I said, hey, do you want a Bhagavad Gita? And he woke up and he sat up and he took the book. And then he just came and got on the bus with him. And he's still a devotee. So you just can't be passive here. You know? Anyway, I love that because I think about that all the time, how you would think, oh, there's no way he's asleep. I think that way. I don't know if everybody else does, but I'm thinking I'm going to bother somebody. So we don't kill and destroy things or hurt things or put things in difficulty. And we try really hard to lift them up by giving them some spiritual consciousness. Then I have another expand your consciousness example from Prabhupada that I like and I want to share. This is a room conversation from 1975 in Tehran. And Prabhupada says, okay, now you guys are civilized now. Produce the foods and the grains for the animals and for man. So both will be satisfied. Why should you kill the animals? You're not in the jungle with no way to eat. If you can work for a few months, grow some food, feed yourself all year out of the food you grew those few months, you don't need to kill thousands of poor animals and thinking that you won't be punished. This is a violation of the laws of God. And he goes further to suggest that after we kill all the animals, we'll probably just kill our children because that's how desperate we are. Because violence exists. It's part of nature's law that there's going to be violence. So it's our job to pick the path of least violence. So the path of least violence is, do we really need to kill all these animals and sacrifice all these animals? I looked up some statistics today just because I woke up this morning thinking about the heaviness of the beings that are killed that kind of just get pushed on the wayside, like the homicides, the animals that get put down at the shelter, the abortions, not just the animals we eat. So I just looked really quickly at some statistics. I didn't know pictures, but just looked at some statistics to kind of see like what we just take for granted when we're talking about true violence. When we don't have that expanded philosophy and we just have that, humans are the only thing that really counts, only beings that count. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit, just a little bit so that you can see this expansiveness of this concern of violence. Suicide, just this in 2021, 48,000 suicides. Homicide, about half of that in 2021. And then pet euthanasia in the thousands, but it was the only number that had gone down. People are so conscious about pets and animals and dogs and cats and things now. By the way, most of the euthanasia goes to kittens, poor little kittens. But I looked at a chart that showed from 1990 to now, and it was a steep downward trend because there's enough information out there. I guess people are thinking, they're trying to save the dogs. It's a small drop in the bucket, but there is some consciousness there. But I don't know that it seems futile. And then if you look at the actual animals that are slaughtered for human consumption in the United States, this morning it was 6 billion since January 1st. And it probably went up since then because the number was clicking around. That's 6 billion souls. And so what we're doing when we slaughter the animals, and this isn't a class about animal slaughter. This is a class about consciousness, raising our consciousness and seeing all beings as equal. We're not the proprietor over everything. So this is, there's ample food without killing all these animals. And so we're interfering with their transmigration. Their soul gets interrupted. It just stops. And this is how I understand it. So I'd love feedback if you guys know more than I do about this, but it's an area I need to read some more. But when we interfere, when we kill the cow or euthanize the dog, or it seems like the soul just goes right back to the beginning of that person's life and comes back into a new body, but it doesn't take up where it left off. It starts over again. So we get the karmic responsibility for all of that, because it's not there's what's the word, we're paying for it like through our karma. So that's just that's only the United States, those numbers I shared with you. So worldwide it's just so phenomenal, I can't even think about it. But because Prabhupada said we're civilized and we should open our realization to a broader spectrum, that makes sense to me, that we not be so tunnel vision onto humans are the only people that count. And it's only these particular humans and these particular bodies in these particular countries. Like that just doesn't make sense in my mind at all. So it's easy to get behind this verse. So we serve God by creating the least amount of violence possible. There's always going to be violence, but we only kill if it's ordained by Krishna, like Arjuna did in the Battle of Kurukshetra. He had to do it. He didn't have to do it. He chose to do it after consulting with Krishna, and it's sanctified battle. And then we know Krishna kills a lot of demons, so we know that there's some killing because it's natural law. But we offer everything. So we take it to the altar and we put it up there, and we offer it to Krishna first, and it's sort of sanctioned by him once we do that, so we don't feel the reaction from it. And then when I was reading about all this, I never thought about it, or it hadn't come into conversation before, but there's nowhere in the Vedas that I could find that said, vegetarianism is the answer to all this. Because even Prabhupada there was a funny article where Prabhupada said goats are vegetarian. So what? They're not Krishna conscious. Like, you can be a vegetarian. That didn't really, it's that deeper stuff. So it says in chapter 9 in the Bhagavad Gita that that he doesn't accept meat, fish, and eggs. And then we go, well, he doesn't accept those things. So we know that. Now, if you're in the jungle, like Prabhupada was talking to that guy in Tehran, and there's nothing to eat, and you've got a family, maybe you go offer the thing to God, and you try to make amends with the karma, and you do it out of necessity. We're not talking about that. We're talking about this, just whatever the number was, 10 million animals since January. That's out of control. That's unnecessary. That's the violence that is utmost. So the eating vegetarian is still violence. We're still killing. If you believe that God created everything, all the vegetables and the plants and the trees and the soil, and we're constantly digging it up and messing it up and putting chemicals in it and screwing up the planet, then if you believe that God created all that, then that's violence. But to go that step further and take the lives of these animals that are in the transmigration path, that's different. So that felt like, I don't know, I like that how that all fit together, and how taking what Prabhupada said and putting it together with all of this information, so I feel more grounded in this. So if I have someone like Tim actually ask me about vegetarianism and why, or the Vedas, I've got something to sink my teeth into, and I'm not just going, well, the poor little animals, they're so cute. And that's what I was doing before. And I'll share another story of, I have 3 friends who are adamant vegans, and they are, one of them I've known for like 30 years, and I've never had a spiritual conversation with this person. He's like in his 80s, so he's been vegan for probably 50 years, which is amazing. But I can think of, as I'm talking about him, I'm thinking of other people I know. But this particular person I've used to play Scrabble with a lot, and it was just always, come on, don't hurt the animals, but it wasn't spiritually based. And so it didn't settle with me, or it didn't sink into my consciousness. And now that I look back on it, I'm like, well, that's why, because there was the God consciousness wasn't the reason. It wasn't because they're spirit souls. It was because they're such cute animals. So then I had this girl check in the other day, and she's like an animal rights person. So she comes down from Minnesota. She just spent 2 months with the manatees in Silver Springs, and they're all dying because the weather's so weird that the vegetation's not growing, and the animals eat like 800 pounds of greens a day each, and there's not enough, and the water's not the right temperature, so they're migrating to the wrong places, and they're just sinking to the bottom and dying. And she was down there trying to save them, and they just have to give up because it's too much. There's thousands of them. She's sharing this with me, and she's obviously touched by it. And then she told me that she just got back from Thailand, where she was at this elephant rescue, where they're abusing the elephants on these working farms, work them 18 hours a day, poke their eyes on all this stuff. And she was so into that, but everything she was doing was about, she loves the animals, but there's not a spiritual conversation about it. So I was thinking about her, and I was thinking, well, this feels weird to me, because to me, it comes from that. Not always did it, but it does now. And so I relate to it on such a different concept level now. And then I had this job this year. I was teaching vegan cooking classes in St. Augustine for a year. And the lady who hired me is a beautiful woman who advocates vegan education, and she gets it into the county school systems. She's got all these programs going after school. They have all this grant money. I think it's a really nice system they've got set up. but she does it for the environment. She doesn't do it for the soul. So whenever I'm with her, I teach by myself in a room, so I don't see her that often, but we talk on the phone a lot and we exchange a lot of conversations. And I'm sort of warned or whatever not to bring that part of it up in the classroom, because I'm supposed to come at it from an environmental, save the environment perspective. And I'm in there by myself with the door shut. So, I take it a step further, but it's all hard to like understand that I have these three really amazing friends. They're beautiful people, but they don't have any spirituality in their life. So they're just doing it from some random, I guess it helps, but like we were talking about earlier with the animals that are being slaughtered, it's kind of futile. It's just you saved 100 manatees. It's kind of futile. The bigger picture is God consciousness. So, all right, so I'm going to stop there, and I just want to add a little bit at the end. I've got some, I've got a few Prabhupada-isms to share. So we've learned about the peace formula in chapter 5 also, and the peace formula is Prabhupada saying, okay, remember these things. Krishna's the enjoyer, Krishna's the proprietor, and he's a friend. If you know that, then you won't enjoy the meat and think that you own everything, and that you won't want to disappoint your friends. So I like the peace formula applied here to equal vision. The second little is called the secret to success. So in the first canto in chapter 10, Prabhupada talks about take refuge under Krishna, and without his sanction, you're not going to find happiness anywhere. You can't find peace. You can't be happy if you don't have God conscious in your heart. So there's no way to be successful. So this is the chapters where they're talking about King Yudhishthira becoming king, and everyone's peaceful. The animals are protected. They're treated like citizens, and the cows that have so much milk that they just water the land with their milk. It's such a beautiful, beautiful picture. And I found the most beautiful picture of Krishna with all these animals, and I want to share it with you in a minute. But I was thinking about like the secret to success is what he had it. You just please Krishna, right? Everything you do, please Krishna. Isn't that Haritoshani, right? Malini Haritoshani. We talked about last week with Mother Nanda. So you please Krishna, and then you get all the rain you need, all the vegetables you need, and the beautiful garden and milk for everybody. And it's just, and you don't please Krishna, you get kind of what we're stuck in right now, which is just a big mess of weather problems and whatever. I won't go into that. So let's follow the path of King Yudhishthira. And the first canto is a beautiful descriptions of what that looks like. So we create this universal brotherhood. And the universal brotherhood means you're my brother, you're my brother, you're my brother, you're my sister, and I treat you that way. And I don't stop at the human capacity. I apply it to all living entities, because they all have the super soul and the spirit soul, and they're all parts and parcels of Krishna, of God. So the universal brotherhood is letting go of the material identity. And we mold our lives to constantly remember Krishna, 1860 something, 65, 68, constantly remember Krishna. We set up our life like we do here at Prabhupada's house, where it's just everywhere, okay? And we mold our life to fit that, and we do what pleases God, and we don't, like my friends I was just describing to you, who lack the spiritual platform, we put everything on the spiritual platform. And so, and Prabhupada calls it Satan's philosophy, when you don't do that, when you segregate and go, okay, you can't leave your kid in the car in the summertime and expect not to get in trouble. You can't leave your dog in the car and expect not to get in trouble, but nobody cares about those cows that are in that truck that are pretty hot. In that truck, there's really nobody caring, a few protesters, but that separation is what Prabhupada calls Satan's philosophy, when we're not applying the same principle to all beings, right? And the last thing I'm going to end with is Krishna loves bhakti. He loves us no matter what, who's performing the bhakti. So it's this free thing we get to do. We get to chant and read and sing and offer our food, learn together, be here tonight together, and he loves all of it. So it's not qualified by, it's got to look just like this, and it has to, it's only humans, like we can incorporate everything we do. And somehow this like makes me feel like I'm included and everybody's included, and no matter what. So I added that to this discussion because it's for everybody. And we have the grace of having Srila Prabhupada to be our leader, and he actually had equal vision. So we actually know somebody that actually attained this way of being and could look at all beings as equal. There's so many stories and letters and descriptions of how equal he was to everybody. So we know what that looks like. So all we have to do is follow his guidance. And he's written us all these books and all these letters and all these videos we can just dive in. So that's I'm going to end there. And then I just wanted to like ask today, when I was preparing for this class, I felt a little like you do, Melanie. A lot of times you'll say, "There's so much I want to share, and there's just not enough time." I think I could do a 3-hour class on this subject, but I was thinking about, okay, let me test myself. And I was looking at all the places I have duality and judgment in my life. And I was really looking at it. So I was thinking, I'm going to invite you guys to do the same thing. Like, where are the dualities in your life, so that you're creating these segmented areas of, oh, those are just roaches, or those are just spiders, or those neighbors don't count, or, well, that guest was difficult, or they don't get it, or I'm being righteous, or, the black and white stuff. So as I look at that myself, I see how far away from equal vision I am. But it also gives me, I know right where I need to grow. So, okay, that's all I want to say on this subject. I think I covered everything that I was going to try to squeeze into this quick hour. Thank you guys for listening. And anybody has any questions or comments, I'm open to hearing whatever you have to say. I'm looking all around because I've got people sitting all around me, so I apologize if there's the camera. Valerie.
Yeah, sorry. I liked what you said just at the end. I actually wrote it down, like the self-righteousness, and like I feel like the difference between the people that are helping animals, they're doing this work, but they're not doing it because, for Krishna, for God. It's like the survivals or strategies of survival. Like if they look good, they feel good, they're like self-righteous, like I'm doing something better for the environment. It's not anything to do really with like
write a check for charity.
Yeah,
look what I did.
It's like, hey, and I feel like the people that are like spouting about it, like, while it could be passion, sure, like I'm passionate about animals, like a lot of the time I experience it's like about just look what I did, like I'm so good, and I can relate and see it because I've also done that, like I've been there, and just like
so you're saying you're going to check your motivation,
I find that when I check in with myself on why I'm doing something, and I'm actually honest with myself, it feels better. Like I wrote down that like equality equals peace. Like it really does. Like when you give everyone the same space. And then I also kind of had a question or feedback question. Like how you were saying tunnel vision. I found that what helps me to be less judgmental is that I almost go into too much of a tunnel vision of myself. And so I'm wondering, like, is that selfish and maybe a little arrogant as well? Like, while I'm not judging the people around me, I'm also not giving, like,
interacting.
Like
you're isolating. So it's easier when there's no challenges around you.
Exactly. So it feels like cheating in a way. Like, so it's
you create your environment to be, so you don't have to
control.
do that.
I think I just answered my own question.
Maybe it sounds like you're applying that to the non-violence part, where like if you avoid sharing what you know, then that feels like violence.
And they say that in therapy, like when we're feeling a certain way, a certain emotion, and we start like looking up and reading all the books and analyzing, getting all the information. It's just another way to avoid what we're feeling.
Yeah.
Like,
Experience.
yeah, it's just escapism. So I'm wondering, it brought that to my mind. Like I've had this thought, like I don't really judge people, but maybe I'm not judging people because I'm not looking as hard. I'm kind of doing the ostrich thing. I'm out of my sand. But yeah, I got a lot of good nuggets from that.
Okay.
I'm gonna.
Did I
can
answer
keep
your
going.
question? I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
no, I answered my own question by
okay.
going through
You
it.
got your answer.
So
Okay.
yes,
All
you
right.
answered.
Thank you, Valerie.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
your question.
Yeah.
Ann and Tim, you guys have a
Thank you, Shana. No, I really appreciated your enthusiasm and all of your research and how you were just building up this crescendos, like, you know, it's like
I was talking fast.
you were talking fast and I was keeping up. But you know what? Sometimes I experience you as rambling, but I didn't really I didn't experience rambling. I experienced like really clear, and you wanted to keep it going, and you were just so much into your focus. And so I was appreciating that you recognize when we pressure cleaned the home that we didn't have a conversation about what does that mean for the lives that may have been washed away with the water. And so I'm appreciating there's a lot of things I haven't looked at. So it's like taking a pause and knowing that there's opportunity everywhere to really see with equal vision, and it's how easy it is not to. Yeah. Like, you know, until you feel safe. Like, but now when you have knowledge, then you know, what do you do with that knowledge? So I feel
now you know.
I feel a little triggered. And I also feel grateful that
well, we're where we're at, but we're all
at.
Yeah.
And then so
It's
so
on the
what I do
table
with
now.
that knowledge. And
It's on the table now, so
it's
we
on the
both
table.
know. Yeah,
Yeah.
we've had to have this class to get there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I also appreciated that you wanted to stay focused when we all came, because it is hard. I came straight after work, and Valerie had been here, and we were all chit-chatting, and you were like, okay, we either gotta do japa or we gotta go into the temple room and do kirtan. And so we said, okay, we're doing kirtan.
Yeah.
So I appreciated you're being conscious to also, not for your benefit, but for our benefit, to bring that into our experience this evening.
Plus, we wafted some beautiful music upstairs to Tim.
Yes, and then he came down. He came down and joined us. So that was nice. So yes.
And
If you want to share.
what I really kind of got out of this was we're really here to help all souls, spiders included,
Yeah.
to keep or help them on their path to God.
Mm-hmm.
You know, whether it's a spider or somebody else, you know, who's coming at you,
All equal.
you know, negative, you know,
The enemy
thing.
thing.
So you really want people to, you know, use live in like their love mode versus the fear mode.
Yeah.
You know? So
Thank you. Yeah.
That's kind of what I see it as.
Thank you for sharing that, Tim. Yeah, it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier today in the hallway. Just feeling you were telling me how you feel empathy for all beings, that you really felt that. But had you ever thought about the animals that get washed away with the pressure washing? I think you're like us. We just kind of yeah. But now you will, and that you can understand where we're coming from here.
Well, yeah. I mean, there have been several times that I've like trapped a spider and taken it outside, you know.
Yeah.
But
so something in you was
in my younger life, I would kick over anthills and smash them and get the magnifying glass and do all that sort of stuff that you learn as a little kid. And you know, now in my older age, I'm reformed, whatever.
There's wisdom.
Maturity.
Entering your life, that you're seeing things as, you know, living, breathing entities.
Right.
Right. And I like what you said about the love.
You try and, you know, bring an attitude of love as opposed to fear and anger and all that. You know, the whole violence and fear are all hand in hand.
Thank you for sharing that. I really got some value out of that.
All right. Anybody else want to share anything or ask any questions?
Hare Krishna. Thank you for such a nice class.
Hi, Shanti. I haven't seen you in a while.
I know, I'm back in town. So what really came up for me, especially with that prompt that you ended with, was just like, and it's been an ongoing thing that I've realized in my own devotional life, is it's really easy for me to think of the human thing. I mean, because that's kind of what we experience in school and grade school and such, and in our adult lives. But what I personally have an issue with is being equal with myself and actually feeling like I deserve to be treated nicely. And I guess it's because of my experience of like karma and stuff in this life. So sometimes that belief is hard for me to shake. But like you're saying, is, you know, we're part and parcel of God. And when we remember that and remind other people to whatever degree they're able to receive it at, it's so beneficial for that grand goal of full realization of who we actually are. And that it leads me to appreciating that point that you were saying about how, you know, nonviolence is giving God consciousness to the living entities. But like some people, like you're saying, what was that, the man's name, Tim? He wasn't ready for at first he's like, I'm not ready for the Bhagavad Gita. It's like, okay, well, let me give you a pamphlet. Okay, I don't have a pamphlet. So let me give you something that all these bridges that are going to lead you to God consciousness. And that is such a refreshing reminder, because I think sometimes I get self-conscious and like, oh, they're not going to take all of Krishna, but I didn't take all of Krishna either. I don't know that. All the little crumbs leading to the temple. And so thank you for reminding me of that, yeah, I gotta be easy with myself and how I present Krishna consciousness to myself and other people.
Yeah. So like, it seems like when we take all of Krishna, we get the equal vision like Prabhupada had, but none of us are Prabhupada. So we're sort of doing some self-violence in the meantime, but we're all in these places. But if it means a pamphlet or even a conversation or a text or whatever it is, it's just so that we're active in that and we're not being complacent, or as Valerie's saying, hiding from it, or not taking the risk or putting ourselves out there. That all sounds like easy to do, and until you get there and do it, and the people are not into it or don't want to hear or don't want to share, like when you're on Harinam or doing just book distribution. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you.
Melanie, you look like you want to say something. No?
I appreciate your class and the connection you made with equal vision, understanding that we are not this body, and violence and non-violence, and how they all connect with each other. And sometimes we say, violence is to spend time with someone and not support them in their self-realization. And and also, that question about the pressure washer. I was thinking, okay, well, we are going to commit violence, and you did say that we cannot get around committing violence. I get in my car, and just between my doorstep and the car, I walk on ants. I kill ants. I kill, germs when I breathe. So violence we cannot avoid. And so, okay, so now cleanliness is close to godliness. So there is Prabhupada house with cobwebs and insect pooped and all that. And then, okay, so I don't clean it because I don't want to commit more violence. But then it become a grungy place and tamasik. And that's not conducive for God consciousness. So what's the solution, Laksmipriya Prabhu?
Well, it's the path of least violence, right? And so we have to maintain our bodies, and we have to maintain being devotional and spreading our devotional love, and being crusades for Prabhupada. And that comes first. I think our health, I think Prabhupada said, is the number one thing. So if it's impeding that, it probably needs to be taken care of. And that would mean possibly some violence, but I don't think it's where it's unnecessary is where the line is drawn, I believe. If it's unnecessary, but if it's supporting your devotion and your progress, and you're raising other people up and lifting them to a spiritual platform, then it's at the cost of. But I was reading something else that Prabhupada said about, if there's a lizard trapped in your room, then feed him. If there's ants, put some sugar down in the little hole where they're coming through, like take care of them. So it doesn't mean ignore them. Oh, it's too bad he got caught. Always there's wasps getting caught in the screens here, and we let them out, and wasps don't bother me to let them out. The roaches bother me to let them out. So it seems like he's like, take care of all the creatures you can, harm the least amount that's necessary for you to survive. But the focus is on self-realization, and in order to do that, we need our health. Does that sound like, have I extracted all the pieces that?
Yeah, you extracted a lot of pieces, and we are going to commit violence, and we don't want to indulge in any unnecessary violence, like you're saying. And also, it's not about violence and non-violence, because it's about bhakti, about devotional service, and how to engage every living entity in a service of Krishna. So Prabhupada House is used in the service of Krishna. It's Prabhupada House in the service of Krishna. And those living entities, their body was killed. Of course, the living entity never dies. They're all spirit soul. And they were, in a sense, sacrificed for the sake of the preaching movement of Lord Chaitanya. And so also we can look at, without abusing this concept, looking at, okay, if I drive my car and I drive my car to go to a pub, or I drive my car to enjoy my senses, I'm loading it over anything, then yeah, naturally I'm going to get the reaction from killing so many bodies. But if I drive my car to the temple to go to a program, I'm going to my car to distribute prashadam to the homeless, for example. Then in that situation, then I benefit those living entities in those bodies, because as I drive my car, my car is spiritualized by the service I'm going to render. And then the living entity are still killed. There is still, like the living entity are killed, like on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, 600 million people died. However, it's a place of sacrifice. So similarly, like there is a sacrifice. When there is such a thing as sacrifice, then that means that the living entity are inhabiting those bodies, sometimes Srila Prabhupada say apartment, then in their sacrifice, they are going to be elevated. So like right. Instead, the ants will, get further away in their in the evolution of their the purging of their karma. So yeah, it's same thing with Prabhupada House. Of course, it would have been very good if you asked the guy who cleaned the house with a pressure washer to chant Hare Krishna to all the living entity, would have been even better. And at the same time, those living entities were sacrificed for the benefit of humanity.
Yeah, yeah. Those two guys came in and had prasadam with me, even though they didn't want to. I just sat at the table and put the bowls out and said, and they just kept saying, no. And I was like, yeah, you have to. And so they did. And then, yeah, they liked it. But they, what I'm hearing you say is, because there's so much service going on here, because we use everything in service, and if we use everything in service, that's the part that sort of changes it from violence to non-violence as we use all of this house and car and computer and everything in Krishna's service, right? It's not, like I have a kayak out there that's not necessarily in Krishna's service. But unless I go chanting in the water and take time to chant over the way over and chant in the water and talk to other people at the loading ramp and do make it into service, right? Yeah.
It's like karmic, like or what you said earlier, ebb and flow, like a karma ebb and flow. There's so much service coming into this house, and like when we just said, like the sacrifice, it's the bugs are being, it's a sacrifice, but like you said, for the greater good of humanity, because we're like sharing God's word and Krishna and Bhakti Yoga and Prasadam. And I also like what Marie said, because it's like a learning experience as well. Like now, like if you
can't
say
unknow
Hare
it.
Krishna, you might use the house power wash for this place to be a place of service. And it's like an opportunity. It's like Krishna gives you the opportunity karmically to be better. And I like the intention behind it. It's making me think of, or reminding me why I don't have the bugs sprayed at my house, because I am scared of the butterflies and the bees getting,
Scared of cancer.
Yeah. Well, I'm terrified of insects, but I'm with Leah as well. Like I roaches, I don't know what it is. I don't even want to crush them. Like I just don't even want to see them. If they're dead, I can't even touch them. But I have gotten to the point where I'll put a cup over them, and then I make Pete take them outside. Or if he's home, he picks any bug up with his bare hands and saves them all. So it's very, very kind. But yeah, Krishna taught me that. I was a bug killer.
It's a rehabilitated
Bug killer anonymous.
Still have it out for the mosquitoes.
Yeah, what I'm reminded of is, after what we just discussed just now, is about that one verse in the Bhagavad Gita where it's like there's action and inaction. And it's such a tongue twister of verse, and I can't remember the whole thing, but yeah, so if I go up my whole service to like not create violence, in a way I'm like trying to control the outcome of the bugs' lives and humans' lives and stuff. So it's like there has to be, I'm trying to link that concept to the concept of like a doctor that just is only a doctor for their own gratification versus a devotee of Krishna doctor who is their mind and their life's work, whatever money, it's ultimately going into devotional service and God's work somehow. So if I'm always trying to adjust things because I'm afraid of the result, then to some degree it sounds like I'm trying to be the Lord of all I survey and the Lord of all that I don't want to survey. So I'm trying to control the outcome, but that's not my job to control the outcome. Like the result is Krishna's. So really I can only control what I can control. So I remember there was this one time where I was living at the Laksmipriya temple, and I would pick flowers in the morning for Mangalarti and for Tulsi Puja, because we offer the flowers for the ceremony. And this day, I would go there really early in the morning. So the pujari, she's coming off the altar and she's done. And in the morning, there's a ceremony where they wake the deities up so that we can worship them and take darshan, and they place flowers on the feet. And so she's done the prasadam. It's like the most spiritual flower now because it's been offered on the Lord's morning feet. And I had my flowers, and they're freshly picked. So there was a spider, and I seen it, and I tried to control the situation. But it was like I was controlled by something else because I had time to pick it up and take it outside like I normally would. But no, I couldn't grab it in time. In the flower container that had the maha flowers, just squashed this spider. And I was like, wow, I almost took the great boon of this spider's death, this spiritual death away from it. And it was just like, I was so happy that Krishna allowed me to see that, because like, even though it was a good intention, I don't want it to die, but it was going to die by the lotus flowers that were on the Lord's feet. And so that kind of puts this class into a realization for me that, yeah, you can try your best, but sometimes like there's this cycle of time that exists where we're taking bodies, and Krishna consciousness takes us out of that. And we have no idea where the bodies of these entities that are in these lower forms of animal life or bug life, where they're meant to go after being in our household or in our car or so forth. And so I'm just kind of grateful for that memory, actually, of like seeing that, we do our best, and Hare Krishna.
That was a good story. Thank you.
It kind of reminded me of the peace formula, like just knowing who's in charge and who everything belongs to, and then knowing that it's all in a bigger plan. And if we just quit trying to control everything, it's sure to save time and energy, and brings me happiness and peace when I'm not trying to make everything just right and think that I know, that I can figure it out and manipulate it somehow and get the result I want. Like talk about futile. That's yeah, to just trust. I think it boils down to trust too. Yeah. Just trusting that this is all, I'm just doing my part, and that's all. I can't be responsible for controlling everything. Yeah. I don't, he'd already decided what that spider was going to do. It wasn't going to be here. You didn't have to. So you wasted some energy worrying about trying to manipulate and contrive. I mean, we do that all day.
It's just a natural reaction.
Yeah. Yeah. To just be unattached to it and observe it, that would be challenging.
Superior, like from young age,
Yeah.
like the hierarchy, the caste system. Like bugs are bugs, they're useless. Like humans are, we're the supreme. We are the top of the tier. We're the top of the food chain. I can remember learning that in school. That exact phrase. Like, and
Top
of the food chain.
Alpha predator.
Yeah, it's humbling to think about that like we're really not like Laksmipriya just said, like that spider, he was gonna die. He's gonna die that day. And I think that we all do it, and I do it too, pretend to have some form of control. But like I feel that the intention and everything behind it is like, that's what matters, at least to me. I like your peace formula with that as well. Like if my intentions are not to serve God or to genuinely help or be kind to something, and I think we can all feel when we're out of line with that, like it's just a area to grow, somewhere that I need to look at, like you were saying, like when you
I'm glad you showed up today instead of any other day.
I know.
All this juicy free information.
It definitely was on purpose, because Krishna said, get your butt over here, girl. Like you need it. And I learned how to do the harmonium.
It's beautiful.
So, yeah.
I'm thinking about like how if I had my preference, I would lead this class with nobody here and it being perfectly quiet, and I could focus and I could do the best class, and then all these people are here, so there's distraction. But to not let that come up and go, somebody else is in charge of this, obviously. So just sink into it, enjoy the company and support, and thank all of you for being my support.
Thank you for leading.
Thanks everybody for being here, Laura and Damayanti and Kelly and Charanti. It's good to see you again. I remember you from Kali Pani's celebration. Yeah.
Thank you for class.
Thank you for making this class possible, Melanie, for encouraging us all to step out of our comfort zone.
Thank you for choosing the topics you choose, nonviolence, equal vision. In the 80s, there was a lot of straight edge band.
I
And
remember
one of
that.
them was Shelter, and there was another one, the band was Equal Vision.
Oh, yeah. I didn't know that one, but I heard of the other one.
It was 108, Shelter, and Equal Vision.
Yeah. Okay. To check that out. Well, thank you, everybody. Good night. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you, Mother Laksmipriya.
Thank you.
Glory to Srila Prabhupada, Bhagavad Gita ki jai.
Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, everybody.